is no recording or amplification device other than what's being recorded on the computer screens you see around you. I will do my best to speak up, but there is no amplification device in this room, so it's very important that everyone stay quiet. Mr. Court Reporter, are we on the record?
We will be ready.
Good evening, everyone. Today is Tuesday, February 4th, 2025. My name is Jennifer Grace. I'm a public utility law judge for the Maryland Public Service Commission. I've been assigned to handle PSC case number 9726, Jaberton Solar Sugarloaf 1 LLC's application for a certificate of public convenience and necessity to construct a 4.0 megawatt solar photovoltaic generating facility in Montgomery County, Maryland. The folks sitting on this side are from the applicant. They're not sitting with me. They're sitting there because they are going to be running a presentation for you all. The folks sitting on my left are technical. The young man over there is the court reporter. He is recording what everyone says so that I get a transcript of this meeting so that I can consider it when I issue an order in this case. For that reason, anyone who approaches the microphone and speaks, I'm going to ask that you spell your first and last name before you speak on the matter. This is a two-part hearing tonight. The first part is going to be where I ask representatives from the parties in this case to come up to the microphone to tell you who they are, who they represent, what their interest is in this case, and what their recommendation is at this point in the hearing. The second part of the hearing is where we're going to hear from the public. I want to hear from everyone, regardless of your position on this case. And I want to do that in an environment where people feel free to speak. It is very important that the Public Service Commission really wants to hear from the public in the location of these proposed facilities. Now, sometimes there's people for, sometimes there's people against, but this is not Judge Judy. So there's not going to be any cheering or anything like that, because then the meeting will just be shut down. And then folks will have to supply written testimony to the Public Service Commission, which some folks have already done. So it is very important that folks remain quiet so that we can hear from everyone. The proposed installation is a community solar facility on 16 acres of a 52.78 acre property located at 20507 Darnestown Road in Dickerson, Maryland, near the intersection of Darnestown Road and Dickerson Road. All of the documents filed in this case are available for you to look at www.psc.state.md.us. There are some handouts where you signed in that have the necessary information for you to be able to go see where to go to look at the information in this case. What you do is you type in the case number, which is 9726 in the case search tab. There you'll see, for instance, that the latest round of written testimony was filed on January 24th. And the next thing that's due from the parties is a status update to be filed on February 7th. Copies of the application are also available for viewing nearby at the Poolsville Town Hall, 19721 Beale Street, Poolsville, Maryland. On the piece of paper handout, there's the address where public comment can be filed written at www.psc.state.md.us/make-a-public-comment, or by first class mail to Maryland Public Service Commission, attention Jamie Bergen, Chief Clerk, 6 St. Paul Street, 16th floor, Baltimore, Maryland, 21202. There must be a reference to case number 9726 for your written public comment to make it into the docket. And the deadline for those filings is this Friday, February 7th. So we're turning now to the first part of the hearing, where I'm going to call on representatives from each of the parties in this matter to give a brief presentation. We'll start with Chaberton.
Good evening and welcome to tonight's public information hearing. First off, I would like to thank all of you for your attendance today. My name is Katie Griffin and I'm a senior project manager for Chaberton. I'm joined with me today, Amy, who's our community engagement leader for this project, as well as Miles, who is our agrivoltaics consultant for Project Sugarloaf.
Ms. Griffin, will you stop and spell the names that you just stated for the court reporter, please?
Yes, ma'am. My name is Katherine Griffin, Katherin, Griffin, Griffin. I'll let them spell their own names.
Amy Bearn is AMEEBEARNE.
And Miles Braxton, MILESBRAXTON.
Go ahead.
All right, next slide. So this project is a 4-megawatt community solar project. It's located a few miles away from here on Darkstown Road. There's approximately 16 acres of panels, with the full limit of disturbance being approximately 19 acres. This project is located in Potomac Edison service territory. Due to its size, this project is subject to the Maryland Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity process. Since our first public information hearing, many things have happened on this project. Mainly, Project Sugarloaf has been reviewed by Montgomery County Planning Board through the mandatory referral process. During this process, Montgomery County Planning Board challenged us to fully explore what it means to have agrivoltaics as part of a solar project. So we have formally made a commitment to include agrivoltaics as part of this project to both Montgomery County and to the Public Service Commitment. And that's been the biggest material change of this entire project. The scope of the project outside of that has not materially changed. Next slide. So from the perspective of what we do when we site community solar projects, one of the first things we look at is how is this project going to connect to the grid? This parcel has a 3-phase 34 kV line that runs directly through the parcel, so the actual interconnection upgrades are minimal. Then we also look at the environmental impact. This project has been reviewed by multiple state and local agencies and has been found not to have a significant environmental impact. We also look at the slopes to ensure it can be as the site is and have our solar technology on it. This site has less than 10% slopes throughout, and that is within our design criteria to be able to put solar on that site. Lastly, we look at screening. So effectively, if you're driving by this site, how will it look to people passing by? If you guys have ever driven on Darkstown Road, you can't see this site from the road. And so since our first public hearing, both the county and state agencies have reviewed this project. You'll hear from them. But regarding these 4 criteria, there were no issues to be found across the board, specifically with the environmental factors, and that includes the stormwater management review, fire and rescue review, and forest conservation plan review. Community solar and this project are directly in line with both state and county renewable energy goals. One of the core tenets of community solar is to provide equitable opportunities for all to participate in renewable solar, regardless of home ownership or ability to finance a private solar array. The Maryland Office of People's Counsel recently released a report estimating that Potomac Edison's residential rates will increase 24% in 2025 and in 2026. The residents in this county who are the least fortunate will bear the biggest burden of this rate increase. This project alone has the opportunity to offset those rate hikes for 550 households in this very community. Maryland is currently an importer of energy. Large-scale ground mount solar is the least expensive form of energy there is. As Maryland continues to produce more solar in the state, instead of importing energy, it can help hedge against the rising electricity rates for all residents in the county and increase tax revenue to both the state and the county. One of the common concerns we've heard from the public, as well as Montgomery County during the mandatory referral process, is the concern over the loss of agricultural land. Since the first public information hearing, we firmly committed to incorporating agrivoltaics as part of our project. We have partnered with Oakavate in order to study what solutions are possible given the existing site parameters. I have tried to explain what they do, but Miles does it much more eloquently than me and can speak fully from a farming perspective given his company's background. So I'm going to turn it over to Miles to explain what Oakavate has done and the information they've provided us regarding agrivoltaics.
Yeah, so just as a starting point, over 83% of ground mount solar removes agriculture from production. This system would not be doing that. We have a problem, a land use. Oh, Sure.
Stand or project your voice either.
Okay. I'm Miles Braxton again. Hope I don't have to respell my name. But we founded Okavate Sustainable Energy because we wanted to provide both a solar solution that protects and enhances the agriculture that it sits on instead of removing it completely. 83% of solar removes agriculture from production. That's not going to happen here. I sit on the board of Jack's Solar Garden, where solar and agriculture create agricultural and economic abundance and resilience for community members, for community supported agriculture groups, especially Sprout City Farms and the local community. So our team put together this report. We come from, we're a team of about 8 now. Half of our team come from a solar development background of over 20 years of experience. The other half come from agriculture and agronomy. Our chief agricultural officer, Jorrit Becking, did his master's in plant science at Wageningen University, which is the largest agricultural research institute in the world. And then his master's in environmental management, studying the intersections of energy and agriculture at Yale University. We looked at several options as to agricultural plans that could happen at the site. This was set to be a framework of what was possible, not what is going to be done at the site. The end goal of this was to understand, using kind of our tools, our irradiance models of understanding what is the light penetration going to be between the rows of this array, allow different types of agriculture, such as pollinators plus apiaries, livestock grazing, even crop production at the site. Kind of using that base analysis, we now have a baseline point of understanding of what can go on agriculturally at this system. The end goal of this is now to, and kind of a next step, put together this RFP where we would be collecting proposals from local farmers to see their innovative solutions of what they would propose at the site. We don't have the answers. We're not telling, someone that to come in and farm this system a certain type of way. We put together kind of this baseline scientific analysis that helped us understand what is possible. And now we're relying on local farmers for innovative solutions to come in and be compensated to now, assist Chaverton in maintaining the agriculture at this site. So I'll leave it at that.
So in addition to the report by Okavate, like Miles said, we have a draft request for proposals, and that is how we will select our agricultural partner if this project is approved. Essentially, the way this is set up is that given the life expectancy of the project, which is 30 years, it's unrealistic to expect that it will be a single farmer over that course of time. There's the likelihood of the farmer may want to move on to other opportunities. We are the first to say that agrivoltaics is new. If what is proposed and what is done initially doesn't work, we have set this request for proposals up in a way that it gives us the opportunity to select a new farmer at any point during the life cycle of this project if needed. But ultimately, the purpose of this proposal is so farmers can tell us what they think is possible given the technical research that Okavate has done specific to this site. With that being said, as part of this RFP, we are offering market rates for services to agrivoltaic providers, and we're open to exploring all opportunities for agrivoltaics. This draft RFP is out to a wide variety of people throughout the county. It has been reviewed by the Montgomery County Office of Agriculture, and we have some initial awesome interest from the University of Maryland. There's been a lot of conversation that Maryland really needs a test facility for agrivoltaics, and we are open and the vouchers are open for this site to bring that to light. So thank you again for attending tonight. We'll be available following the public comment period if you guys have any questions. But at this point, I would like to turn the floor back over to our judge.
Power plant research program. Turn the mic around so you face the audience.
My name is Supida Bukau. It is spelled Supida Piw. And I am the project manager for the state's review of the solar project. My agency, the Power Plant Research Program, is part of the Maryland Department of Natural Resources, and we coordinate an independent review of the CPCN application for the reviewing state agencies, which include Department of Natural Resources, Environment, Agriculture, Transportation, Commerce, and Planning, as well as the Maryland Energy Administration. Once the state's review is complete, the secretaries of DNR and MDE make a recommendation to the Public Service Commission as to whether the CPCN should be granted or denied. If the state recommends approval, PPRP submits recommended licensing condition to the PSC for their consideration. For this case, the secretaries of DNR and MDE are recommending approval of the CPCN with the incorporation of the recommended licensing conditions that PPRP has submitted for the PSC review. PPRP filed its direct testimony and exhibit for this case on January 24th, 2025, under MLOC number 315111, with the public versions being available online on the PSC website and the PSC case number 9726. And the matter is now set for an evidence hearing on February 11th. 2021. Thank you.
Office of People's Counsel.
Good evening, Your Honor, and attendees. I'm Brock Miller. I'm an attorney with the Office of People's Counsel. We represent the interests of Maryland's class of residential ratepayers and proceedings before the Public Service Commission, state and federal courts, and agencies. We haven't filed any testimony in this case, but we reviewed the application, testimony, and other filings from the parties. As of now, we do not oppose the project, subject to the licensing conditions of PPRP, but we're here to listen to what the public has to say and what local residents have to say on the project as we finalize our recommendation before we attend the hearing for the public utility law judge. Thank you.
Montgomery County.
Good evening, Judge Grace. Attendees, my name is Lisa Brennan, Lisabrennan, Assistant County Attorney for Montgomery County, Maryland. Also attending this evening from Montgomery County is Dale Tibbetts, Special Assistant to County Executive Mark Eldridge. The proposed project is located in Montgomery County, so intervened a party to this proceeding. We recently filed the written comments of the County Council and County Executive Mark Eldridge that can be found on the PSC's webpage for this case. For CPCN applications, the Commission must give due consideration to the recommendation of the governing body of the county and to the consistency of the application with the comprehensive plan and zoning of the county where the project will be located. The comments filed describe the efforts of the committee that have resulted in a zoning text amendment that allows solar collection systems in the agricultural reserve zone, but with certain protections for farmland. As currently proposed, the project is not consistent with the Montgomery County zoning ordinance that restricts development of solar projects of certain sizes and characteristics in our agricultural reserve on Class 1 and Class 2 soils. Thank you.
Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission.
Good evening, Your Honor, everyone. My name is Matthew Mills, M-A-T-T-H-E-W-M-I-L-L-S, and I'm here on behalf of the Montgomery County Planning Board. I'm their lawyer. The Planning Board is part of the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission. That's a big mouthful, so I usually just stick with Planning Board. Park and Planning Commission is the land use authority in this part of the county. Pursuant to state law, the Planning Board reviewed this matter as a mandatory referral, which is an advisory process to the approving authority, in this case, the Public Service Commission. Following extensive analysis by planning staff and equally extensive deliberation over the course of 2 public hearing dates, the Planning Board ultimately voted 3-2 to recommend denial of the application to the Public Service Commission. The board also recommended potential conditions of approval should the PSC ultimately decide to approve the application. Should anyone be interested, the staff report and a recording of the board's proceedings are available on the planning board's website, which is montgomeryplanningboard.org, all one word. Thank you.
Sugarloaf Citizens Association, Montgomery Countryside Alliance, Montgomery County Farm Bureau, and Montgomery Agricultural Producers.
My name is William Sheehan, William Sheehan. Judge, I represent the four interveners whom you just mentioned. We oppose the project. We filed testimony, one on behalf of the Montgomery Countryside Alliance, speaking for all of us, and the other, the Montgomery County Farm Bureau, speaking for all of us. I can go into detail about the reasons for our opposition, or I can state our opposition now, as you wish, Judge.
It's up to you.
Well, I'll say a word or two then.
Louder, please.
You're gonna have to turn and face the back of the room, but they're not going to hear you.
Mic is not on.
That mic is for recording only. It doesn't amplify your sound.
Got it. So I represent four interveners: the Montgomery Agricultural Producers, the Montgomery County Farm Bureau, the Montgomery Countryside Alliance, and the Sugarloaf Citizens Association. So among these interveners, two of them are basically made up of farmers. Nothing is more important to climate than farmers. And we have reached the decision to oppose this project because it's contrary to our desire to retain first-class agricultural land in the agricultural preserve. And because the county has already, and by I say the county, I mean all of us, we've given serious consideration to the issue of solar. And it's not like Montgomery County is opposed to solar. It's enthusiastic about solar. It's enthusiastic about slowing down climate change. It's also enthusiastic about preventing the spoliation of good farmland in upper Montgomery County in the reserve. So the county looked very seriously at what to do about solar, and it has approved solar everywhere in the county, and it's approved solar also in the agricultural reserves, but with a couple of restrictions. And so the zoning restrictions in Montgomery County are dedicated to the preservation of first-class farmland. And Chaperton has come in and said, we don't care what you think about where our projects should go. We don't care that you have a zoning law that prohibits citing our project where we want to cite it. We don't care about that. They're not here in a pro bono matter. They can talk to you about how rate hikes are going to go up and they may prevent rate hikes. This is not a pro bono operation on their part. They're not here to help. So I think it's important. The Ag Reserve has been subject to the death of 1,000 cuts over the 25 or 26, 28 years that it's been in existence. This is another example of this. Chaperton has solar projects all over Maryland, all over Montgomery County. It doesn't need another one here that overrides the wishes of the people of Montgomery County. I want to repeat, we're not opposed to solar. The county is not opposed to solar. My clients are not opposed to solar. It belongs in appropriate places in the county, appropriate places in the Ag Reserve, and on first-class farming land. You can't replace farming land. It's not renewable. And the idea that an agrivoltaic project here is going to save the day is something that you shouldn't buy. This is an afterthought. This was not part of the project. This is an afterthought, and you just heard how speculative it is. They don't have any idea how this is going to work. They don't have any idea if this is going to make any contribution to the agriculture of Montgomery County. They don't have a farmer lined up. They're talking about having this farmer, that farmer. This might not work, that might not work. This is just a promise. And in my view, it's an empty promise. It was an afterthought. So we've made these points in our testimony. I suspect this will go to a contested hearing because I think the probabilities that we're going to settle this matter with Chapperton are, shall I say, vanishingly small. And so we will make our case again at the public hearing, and I thank you for listening to me this evening.
Commission technical staff?
Good evening. My name is Harrison Scher, spelled HARRISONSCHERR. I represent the Public Service Commission's technical staff in this matter. For this matter, my clients are engineers of the Commission's technical staff, and it is our scope to evaluate the project for its effect on the reliability of the electric distribution grid. Staff has filed testimony on January 24th, recommending approval of the project subject to other licensing conditions by agencies that have jurisdiction in this matter. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, before you step down, can you turn the microphone the other way so it's facing me? The other way. Thank you. And as I'm going to call on you as staff's counsel, can you grab the rest of the sign-in sheets and bring them forward, please?
No problem.
Thank you. All right, so we're turning to the second portion of the hearing, which is for me and for all of the parties to hear from folks in this community about what you think about this project. There are a lot of folks here. I'm not sure how late we have this room. So 5 minutes is probably too long for each comment, but I'll try not to cut you off. Remember, if you have additional things to say, you can file written comments as late as this Friday. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I have some folks that signed up to speak online who weren't able to be here tonight. I'm going to try to stop halfway through and let those folks go, and then I'll keep going with the folks who are here. I'm not going to call names who said I don't want to speak. And I'm going to call names who didn't answer if they want to speak or not. You can let me know if you want to. Please don't be shy. There's a bunch of attorneys here. They're not going to ask you any questions. They're not allowed. This is for us to hear from you. So please don't be shy. Steve Tvardek, did you want to speak, sir? If you do, come up forward to the microphone, please.
This should happen when I buy a lottery ticket. Stephen with a V, Tvardek, Tvardek. I'm here tonight because the county has spoken very often about climate change and environmental policy. And it seems to me that this is a unique opportunity to do good things that would not damage the agricultural reserve. I don't understand the zero-sum game of one of the predecessors here that solar automatically degrades farming. I think that it can be done in a constructive way. I don't think you have to have every single answer at the beginning of the process. I think we can work through over time to figure out how the project can maximize both solar power and farming. So I think we should come with an open mind. I think it's very difficult for the county to propose environmental policies and make them integral to their planning process and then say no to something like this. So for me, it's kind of a no-brainer, to be honest with you. And I don't care if someone's getting paid to do this. There's nothing wrong with that. There's no stigma to commercial enterprises. So no one's going to do it for free. And if we can get something that's good for the farmers and good for the environment and good for the county electricity supply, I think that's all a win-win-win. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda Lewis.
Hello, my name is Linda Lewis, Linda Lewis. I'm one of those Montgomery County, can I speak to them?
You're speaking to me.
I'm one of those Montgomery County farmers. Okay, And so in 1980, Montgomery County created the Ag Reserve. So it's almost 45 years old. And their agrivoltaics, when I read part of it, I did make the comment that their book analysis or their desk analysis is not going to work. There's no water, right? You're a farmer, you need water. You need equipment. Labor in this country is no more. And I'm a tabletop farmer, so I'm not talking about grain farmers. I'm talking food that we grow on your table. It's not easy. I don't have a problem with solar. I have a problem with this ag reserve was created, and now they're saying it's coming at us, right? So all of these people in this room are fighting because guess what? Everybody that owned land in 1980 gave up their property values because it should, okay? And then you're talking the farmers that have been here, okay? It's not an easy job. We don't have that many farmers anymore. And so that's all I have to say. I agree with solar down county. And after you've done down county, then you can come at us. But if we have another pandemic, you cannot eat solar panels.
Thank you.
Pardon me, I take a lot of notes. Just give me one moment. Joyce Briner.
Greetings, Joyce Briner, Joyce, Joyce, Briner, Breiner. Greetings, Judge Grace and attendees. I'm Joyce Briner, certified by the state of Maryland and the Association of Climate Change Officers as a climate change professional and co-founder and executive director of Poolsville Green, a local all-volunteer nonprofit organization. I strongly support the Chaverton Sugarloaf project and the implementation of solar energy on agricultural land in general. The urgency of climate crisis necessitates the bold and innovative approaches and projects like Chaverton and Sugarloaf are essential to meet our renewable energy goals while preserving the integrity of our agricultural land. As net energy importers, Maryland and Montgomery County must boost local renewable energy production to reduce dependency and greenhouse gas emissions. Sugarloaf addresses climate change by producing solar energy while supporting agriculture at the same time. I disagree with the presumption that the restriction of solar on Class 2 soils by the ZTA is, and I'm rewriting things here, is still going to allow solar in the Ag Reserve as defined in the ZTA. The county record reflects the unlikeliness that the project's opponents would prefer you to believe. In other words, that it'll allow it to happen. As a result, 4 long years later, the ZTA that was intended to allow some community solar at scale in the county's Ag Reserve has resulted in preventing any community solar in the Ag Reserve. It is essential to consider this context when deciding the fate of the Chaverton Sugarloaf project and similar initiatives. Community solar projects are crucial for climate justice, providing access to renewable energy for those unable to install solar panels at home. These projects allow more people to benefit from clean energy and to reduce carbon footprints. Agrivoltaic and ecovoltaic practices combine solar energy systems with agricultural activities, providing dual use benefits. These innovative practices are gaining popularity globally, with installations in states like Maine, Virginia, Georgia, Colorado, Arizona, Washington State, and across the Midwest. I made a point to go to both the Agrivoltaic World Conference and the U.S. Solar Farm Summit in 2024, witnessing firsthand their impact. Maryland must embrace this dynamic dual use reimagining to stay competitive and avoid missing out on its benefits, such as environmental benefits that promote biodiversity, improve soil health, and conserves water resources. Added revenue streams for farmers that provide financial stability and support sustainability and resilience of those farmers and their operations. Enhancing crops, as solar panels create microclimates that reduce water evaporation and shield crops, potentially boosting productivity in extreme weather. Current zoning regulations prevent agricultural innovation that could benefit the whole Mid-Atlantic region. By restricting the development of community solar projects and dual use practices, these regulations inhibit potential advancements in renewable energy and agricultural productivity. The ability to innovate is crucial for adapting to further climate change challenges and ensuring the resilience of our agricultural systems. In conclusion, the approval of the Chaverton Sugarloaf project is essential for advancing Maryland's renewable energy goals, supporting agricultural sustainability, and promoting climate justice. Agrivoltaic, ecovoltaic practices offer a path to integrate solar energy with agricultural activities, providing multifaceted benefits to farmers, the environment, and the broader community. I urge the PSC to approve the Chaverton Sugarloaf project and to consider the broader implications of supporting solar energy on agricultural land. By doing so, we can make meaningful progress towards sustainable and equitable energy future for all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Rob Baker.
Hi, Rob Baker, ROBBAKER. I'm a farmer, multi-generational farmer right down the street. I'm not opposed to solar, but I'm opposed to using class 1 and class 2 soils to put solar on. As an agronomist, trained agronomist, I feel like that's the wrong thing to do. And I think we can do better than that. I don't have a lot to say like the lady before me, other than, the farmers in this room, again, when the ag reserve was created, were stripped of our property values. And, we're kind of the last frontier here. So if we do care about the ag reserve, the 93,000 acres, I think we should strongly consider not doing this. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert Wilbur. Marcia Kingman. Karen Ryan.
Your Honor, we represent the same organization.
Karen Ryan, KarenRyan. We've lived in Montgomery County's agricultural reserve for over 6 years. We grow our own organic vegetables and berries. We greatly appreciate the wonderful local farm stands where we can find crops that we don't yet grow ourselves. Having local vegetables, eggs, and meat nearby was invaluable during COVID and continues now to give our Montgomery County neighbors a local source for the freshest products. We are strong supporters of alternative energy sources. When we built our home, we installed a geothermal system to reduce our carbon footprint, and I still use a wash line. We believe that solar and wind should be incorporated wherever appropriate to reduce our need for more polluting energy sources. But prime farm soils are absolutely not appropriate location for solar. Before retiring to Maryland, my husband and I were employed as technologists. And one of the many things that we learned over the years is that technologies need to be situated in the right environments in order to achieve optimal results. We realize that open farmland may provide an easier solar installation than other sites, but once the land is used in this manner, it will be taken out of production for decades, perhaps never returned to agricultural production. Solar can be placed, Solar can be placed on roofs as part of structures and parking lots and on other land areas that are not prime farmland. What we are discussing tonight is that companies and individuals are attempting to get around Montgomery County zoning and master plan by going directly to the Public Service Commission. There is no doubt that we as a society need better, cleaner ways to generate power, but ruining the farmland in the county is not the best way to go about it. Energy companies may be able to offer landowners more than what others will pay for farmland, but that reduces the number of new farmers that can afford to start farming. Allowing this to continue is a precedent that is not in the long-term interest of the county's residents, nor the interests of the citizens of Maryland. The Ag Reserve is a treasure that should be utilized by farmers to grow crops and raise animals to supply the local residents. We need to do everything in our power to protect this land. Thank you.
Thank you. James Ryan. I'm sorry, you put no or you X no, you don't want to speak. I apologize. Richard Thomas.
My name is Richard Toms. Richard, R-I-C-H-A-R-D, Toms, T-H-O-M-S. I've opposed the project for these reasons. We explained we're the farm that's located on the northeast side of this site. We have a small farm there and border the proposed facility. There's a creek that runs sort of across their property line onto ours and back and forth. That sort of marks the division between the proposed location and our farm. We don't oppose solar. In fact, we have 85 panels installed on our barn and outbuildings and intend to expand that as we can within the guidelines of the ZTA. But the proposed facility, as I understand it, has several things that are objectionable in my opinion. One, I agree completely with the comments that Mr. Sheehan made about agrivoltaics. It seems to me like a wish list thing, not a plan. And there are a lot of reasons to believe that it's difficult to accomplish with the style of panels that have been proposed to be put in. So I'm very dubious about the likelihood of agrivoltaics being successfully implemented as it's been described so far. The second thing is I don't really understand why the project can't be made to comply within the zoning text amendment that Montgomery County has developed. There are lesser grade soils available on this property, and there's the size of the facility is larger than it needs to be in compliance with Montgomery County zoning. And what happens if all it takes for a farmer to convert their property to the industrial use of the solar array is to expand the size of the project so that it goes to the PSC instead of Montgomery County for approval, then we're going to lose the ag zone. You know, the dollars involved are ridiculous. We have a grazing operation, and for us to rent out pasture land, you can get about maybe $250 an acre. The numbers that we've been quoted for using our ground as a solar array by solar developers go as high as $5,000 an acre. Now, with that kind of economic difference, we're going to convert the entire ag zone into an industrial solar array just because the economics won't make sense if all it takes is to make the project large enough to get out of the zoning regulations in Montgomery County. So the risk of losing the ag zone due to the economic difference of this industrial application versus agriculture concerns me. And I don't understand why it's necessary to get around Montgomery County's zoning, which was negotiated with a huge amount of input from a variety of different sources. And yet there doesn't seem to be any attempt to comply with that zoning. So for these reasons, and one last thing, I haven't seen a stormwater management system in the documents that I've seen about this project. With the number of panels that they have and with no stormwater management system, you're going to have channeling occurring where the water comes off the edge of the panels. And that's going to run down into a creek that feeds the Little Monocacy River and ultimately the Potomac. Again, I haven't seen anything in the proposal that prevents that from happening, and that's a concern. It's especially a concern if you assume that the agrivoltaics doesn't happen, and what ends up being done is that they simply use herbicide to prevent the weeds from getting out of control on the site, and that all, of course, would run off into the creek. So those are the reasons for my opposing the project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pete Driscoll. Randy Stabler.
Here.
Pete Driscoll, P-E-T-E-D-R-I-S-C-O-L-L. I hadn't planned to speak tonight, but since I'm here, I'll tell you my position. In 1980, I bought my first piece of land in Bellsville, Maryland. I've worked on it ever since. The Ag Reserve was started that year. We didn't have any solar at that time. This is supposed to be strictly agriculture. Solar is commercial use of agricultural ground, and I'm against it. Other counties have tried it. I think maybe Montgomery County should watch and see what other people do. There are solar fields all over Maryland. There's one in Frederick on Route 355, the Park Mills Road. It was built a year or two ago. I think we should look and see what happens with that. We don't need to make mistakes that other people are making. I understand there's a solar field in California that has to be torn down because it's killing birds. We just don't know yet. And we have plenty of places to put solar in Silver Spring or Rockville. We don't need it out here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Diana Conway.
Okay, I'm not Randy Stabler. I'm Diana Conway. DIANA CONWAY. And I'm here opposing the application. Good evening, Judge Grace. I've lived at 10600 River Road, an 1820s farmhouse in Potomac since 1995. I've been a civic activist for most of those 30 years after retiring. My focus as an activist has been on planning for our community and our schools through years of involvement with the MCCPTA and multiple appointed boards. I've also been involved in planning for our environment. I'm a current trustee of the Maryland Environmental Trust, founding member of the C&O Canal Trust, and a board member of the Montgomery County Women's Democratic Club, which has an advocacy committee dedicated to bills to protect our environment. I'm speaking tonight on behalf of myself. I come up to the reserve and the Dickerson-Poolsville area 2 to 4 times a week for recreation, to purchase local farm products, and I have dozens of friends here I see. Like many here, I supported the 2021 ZTA advancing solar in the Ag Reserve with some conditions, including 2 megawatt size and protecting farm soils. And like many here, I opposed Chaberton's application to the CPCN to build 4 megawatts of solar on protected farm soil in the Ag Reserve. I think it should be pretty simple. The goal, the primary purpose of the Ag Reserve is in its name. Removing productive farmland from farming cannot be shoehorned into it. It just cannot. And the PSC should not be facilitating or incentivizing such changes. Further, 4 megawatts is not 2 megawatts. And while the larger size has negligible positive impacts on energy, it will have serious, irreversible, very negative impacts on the fixed supply of arable land in the AR, and on the result, and as a result, will have an effect on the cost of remaining land, further eroding the ability of farmers to afford the land they need to grow. For 40 years, the county and the state have both supported and defended the Ag Reserve. I certainly understand why the applicant likes this proposal. Big swaths of greenfield are certainly easier than retrofitting rooftops and parking lots. No argument there. But that's just not good enough to break the zone and unravel decades of widely praised and very hard-won planning. And it does not achieve necessary local food resilience and face of climate change. We can do better, and I urge denial of this application. And in reference to prior comments, I would just like to say the idea that this project is going to somehow save us all from the rate increase. I'm sorry, that's just, I call BS. Agrovoltaics was clearly a throwaway gimme at the end to make it look good. And stormwater management, that I look forward to hearing about that. I hadn't even thought about that question. The fact that it's not in here shows a certain lack of planning. Thank you.
Mikey Stotts.
I speak this one.
No, you're speaking on me.
Okay. My name is Mikey Stotz, Mikeystotz. Before I get started, Richard Toms mentioned he's getting 250 an acre for grazing lands. I think we need to talk something after this meeting. Maybe share some contact info. I too am interested in that. I'm the owner of Bluffing Goat Farm. We are a dairy farm specializing in the production of goat milk and goat cheese. Many of you are probably familiar with the past owner of my farm, David Weitzer. Perhaps some of you even shot your first 8-point buck on my farm. I've been quite impressed by my colleagues here in their ability to keep an open mind. I don't think a single person that's spoken so far has indicated that they are opposed to solar. It's not on the folks in this room to solve climate change. Sure, that's a fantastic byproduct of our pursuits, but at the end of the day, we need to be cognizant of the local impact before we make any commitments. The circle of care as it relates to solar, as I see it, are concentric circles that start with me and my fellow farmers in this room. Then it goes to Montgomery County, and then it grows outward to the state, and then the eastern seaboard, and on and on. I care about the farmers in Montgomery County. I think I've chatted with a lot of the folks in this room about solar at one point in a one-on-one setting, and I have to admit that I've learned more in those meetings than my 18 years of school. Like all of you, I am not opposed to solar. In fact, quite the opposite. I think Montgomery County and the farmers in the Ag Reserve have an incredible opportunity before them. There is a path forward for solar, but I think it's a tightrope. I think a lot of the points that the folks have raised here have been excellent ones. I can't argue against a single person that has been opposed to this specific proposal. I think that it feels a little bit like shooting from the hip on this one, in the sense that, like the person that spoke before me mentioned, agrivoltaics feels a bit like an afterthought. And I can't help but acknowledge the fact that the folks that are proposing this particular project are not farmers themselves. It's great that they're open to implementation of farming, and that's awesome. But it would be nice if they came more prepared with a plan for the farming and the agricultural use of the land. The soils of grades 1 and 2, that is disconcerting. I think there's plenty of soils of 3 and 4, particularly on David Weitzer's former farm, that might be a better fit for this. But I'm not opposed to this in general, and I just think that there needs to be a bit more thought given to the farming use of the land that's being proposed here. Thank you.
Lauren Greenberger.
Grace. My name is Lauren Greenberger, LaurenGreenberger. I have a small farm here in the Ag Reserve also, and I also think solar is a cool thing. In fact, I have it on my roof.
Can you speak up, Lauren?
I like solar. I have it on my roof, and I have a small farm here in Dickerson. I want to make a point that there isn't one farmer who has spoken today who is enthusiastic about this. They recognize how hard it is to combine the two if you're trying to actually put it on land that you want to farm. And that's why the ZTA was such a great idea. You can put farm on our properties, put solar on our properties that can't be used for growing crops or raising animals. And there's a lot of that in the county. There's maybe 5,000 acres that the Department of Agriculture has identified. It's not that, one person said, well, why aren't there any projects yet? Well, there actually are projects, and there's one right down the road from me that looks like it's going to go through. It meets all of the terms of the CTA. But it's up to the solar companies to work within the parameters of the zoning that we have. And that's just do it. I mean, this property, you could do 2 megawatts on it and do it on the non-prime soil. Why not do that? I'm not sure. It's a bigger project. You make more money from it, maybe. But I want to really focus on the fact that the economic disadvantage or worry for the producers in this area for this kind of project. 60% of farms in the Ag Reserve are on leased land. 60% of the land here or the farms here are leased, which means those people don't own that land, and they are at the mercy of the landowner. These are a lot of our farms. And this property is actually a good example. It's been farmed for generations, and the farmer has now been kicked off, and Shabertons have been invited in, and that they were probably getting $2,000 a year for that property from the farmer for all that land, 16 acres. They could get $40,000. I mean, this is going to make people who had bought into this system, some of them kicking and screaming back in 1980, because you heard from a couple of my friends here who said, we lost the value of our land when we bought into the Ag Reserve, or when the Ag Reserve was created, because suddenly that land was not available for commercial sale anymore. So it was only available for farming. So they couldn't sell that land someday to put a subdivision on it so their kids could, have an inheritance. That's gone. That land is now all just for farming. Now, when you start to say we want to put industrial operations on that land, it changes the economy of this place. And people are going to lose their jobs and they're going to lose their living because landowners who speculatively maybe bought land or just are deciding I can make more money off of it if I bring in a solar company. So, I mean, I like the fact that we could put solar on a few acres of my land where I'm not doing farming. But to say that you can take prime farmland, anyone can take their prime farmland out of production and put an industrial operation there is just completely contrary to this model that we have all bought into over the past 40, almost 50 years. Thanks.
Jennifer Morash. Melanie Hoffman. May have said that wrong.
Thank you, Your Honor, and thank you to the Public Service Commission for making this possible. My name is Melaine Hoffman, Melane, Hoffman, Hoffmann. My husband and I have lived for more than 30 years on Peachtree Road in the Ag Reserve. We have a 47-acre farm with about 30 acres in hay for cattle consumption and an active flower farm on our premises. We love solar. We put a solar roof on our house in 2008, long before the invention of solar rooftop leases. We invested our own money in solar because we wanted clean energy to power our home. And I strongly supported the creation of the solar zoning text amendment in Montgomery County in 2021. It was a very carefully crafted compromise that limited solar to 2 megawatts on less than premium soils. But I strongly oppose this proposal, and here's why. The PSC should not be providing economic incentive to remove farmland from farming. Large solar projects would do just that by giving landowners a use for farmland that's economically more rewarding than farming. The increase in the project size from 2 megawatts to 4 megawatts in the Chaverton example, and in other projects that would surely follow because the economic incentive would be there, does very little for energy security or climate risk mitigation in Maryland. I mean, really? The impact of the size increase is negligible and it's unnecessary for energy purposes because there are hundreds of other potential sites around the state and in Montgomery County and even in the Ag Reserve. And there are solar projects in the Ag Reserve. But the negative impact of the size increase would be enormous for the value of farmland and the preservation of agriculture because the price of farmland would inevitably skyrocket out of reach for most farmers. In other words, if you eliminate the 2 megawatt zoning size limitation, you don't accomplish much for clean energy, but you begin the gradual unraveling of the agricultural reserve, which would be irreversible. So we've heard it said that there's a conflict between the county policy in favor of ag reserve zoning limits and the state policy in favor of maximizing solar energy. But in fact, that's kind of a misleading construct. The state of Maryland has supported Montgomery County's agricultural ag reserve and the preservation of agriculture with financial support for more than 40 years. In just one example, by funding conservation easement programs. There are many more examples. The state, like the county, made a policy decision decades ago to preserve farming in Montgomery County. It makes no sense for the state to now backtrack on supporting that preservation and unravel their tremendous investment. The state, like the county, can support preservation of farmland while also still supporting solar investment, including in the ag reserve. So the two policies to preserve land for farming and to promote solar investment are not in conflict as public policies. They are only in conflict in this case because this particular solar developer and landowner want to create an opportunity to build a larger solar project and put it in the ag reserve. That would make their project much more profitable for them, but it does a lot more harm than good. So a higher profit margin for Chaverton should not be the rationale for dismantling agricultural land use policy and investment that has protected local farming and the local food chain for decades. Thank you.
Eric Spates.
Hello, Your Honor. I'm Eric Spates. It's ERICSPATES. And I'm a farmer here in the Ag Reserve, farm about 1,500 acres, which for reference is a little bit over 2 square miles. I stand in opposition to the project that Chaverton is proposing here, and I want to make 3 points. First off is the purpose of the Ag Reserve, then the concerns that I have with the term agrivoltaics, and finally, I think we have better choices for locating solar. The Ag Reserve was created in 1980 to preserve Montgomery County's agricultural heritage. Our agricultural heritage consists mostly of growing crops to produce such things as grains, fruits, vegetables, fiber, flowers, hay, and also the keeping of livestock. The benefit to the citizens of the area are many. The wide open green fields and bucolic views attract many visitors for a bike ride, a trip to one of our orchards, or simply to get out of the city and ride a horse in the greenery. Additionally, there are the environmental benefits of vegetation, like cleaner air full of oxygen and water filtered by the earth. I don't think anyone comes to the Ag Reserve to see solar panels. While I can't blame anyone for wanting a solar lease with guaranteed income to pay a mortgage or assure some income in retirement, I think we need to consider the long-term consequences of allowing commercial solar installations on agricultural land. So, the idea of agrivoltaics has emerged as a happy solution where the solar companies can check all the boxes to appear to be satisfying the drive to replace fossil fuel while still allowing agriculture to continue on the same land. But is this idea a reality? Is it a concept or a practice? I would argue that the applicability of agrivoltaics is very limited. I know it doesn't work for me. I have a sprayer that's 90 feet wide. I'm not going to fit that in between the solar panels. The Department of Energy stated about agrivoltaic solar installations in a paper released in April of 2023 that the majority involve sheep grazing and or pollinator habitat. There are plenty of programs to promote pollinator habitat. While there may be some farms where sheep or goats are raised for profit, I believe it's quite limited. Therefore, my concern is that an applicant could simply state their intention to establish some sort of agriculture beneath the solar panels and then promptly decide that it just didn't work. I'd like to be clear that I'm not against solar, and I believe that we should follow the carefully thought out zoning requirements laid out by the county, whereby solar installations can be established where they are truly accessory to agriculture, be it to power a dairy, a grain dryer, greenhouse, or other legitimate agricultural enterprise. The goal to supply 40% of the U.S. energy needs by 2035 is estimated to require 5.7 million acres. I don't believe that it's a good idea to consume the valuable resources of productive farmland for this goal. With the vast areas of abandoned factories, parking lots, and roofs that don't currently produce food and may already be impervious, I think we should give careful consideration to replacing solar facilities there rather than follow the easy but short-sighted path of retiring farmland. Thank you.
Thank you. John Switzer.
Good evening, Your Honor. I'm John Snitzer, John. Snitzer. I live in Dickerson, Maryland, about 5,400 feet north of this proposed project, and I'm here to support it for three reasons. First, to address the problems of climate change. Climate change is the existential threat to our world today. It's been understood since the 1980s. It is devastating. Ecosystems are being destroyed. Species extinction rates have increased between 100 and 1,000 times background levels. Stable weather patterns that people, including all the farmers in this room, have relied on for 10,000 years are being tinkered with in ways that we don't understand and can't control. The predictions of the evils of climate change that were made 40 years ago are now supported by decades of data. It's also well understood that replacing fossil fuel power generation with renewable energy is one of the most effective tools in fighting climate change. Maryland as a state is highly susceptible to the problems of climate change, particularly to sea level rise. Half the state is in the coastal plain. According to the Maryland Department of Natural Resources, we have 3,190 miles of coastline, and every inch of it is adjacent to rising seas. Protecting farmland has been a big issue in the discussions tonight. But while we're protecting farmland at Dickerson, thousands of acres of farmland elsewhere are being destroyed by sea level rise. There were some investigators from the University of Delaware who looked into this problem a few years ago. And from their paper in Nature Sustainability in January 2023, referring to the Delmarva Peninsula, our results show that between 2011 and 2017, visible salt patches on farmland almost doubled, and 8,096 hectares of farmlands converted to marsh. That's 20,000 acres. So we're interested in protecting a few acres here, and everybody seems convinced that twice the sustainable generation is not worthwhile because it won't solve the whole problem. It's clear that replacing fossil fuels with solar power is crucial to reducing our carbon footprint, and that this project, built here, built now, is a good idea. Second, I support this project as an answer to the need for more power. We need more power. There's been news of refiring a nuclear plant at 3 Mile Island to generate power for a data center. There are plans to build energy-hungry data centers all around us. This is the land of the Q loop. And it's not just that. My wife and I put solar power on our garage whenever the discussion of the zoning text amendment started 5 years ago. When you have an array like that, you get very fine-grained information about your power usage and production. It allows you to pull out how you're using power at different times of day and what you're using it for. Charging our 2 electric vehicles, an all-electric Bolt and a plug-in hybrid, uses almost as much electricity as running the rest of our household. If we're going to change people from internal combustion engine powered transportation to sustainable energy, we need a lot more power. This project will provide more power. Finally, income inequality, and this is a problem. I would throw it out to the audience that never in my life have I had a presidential election where the cost of a dozen eggs was an economic issue. And it's more serious than that. We have people who can't afford housing and education and healthcare. And this project is going to put controlled, low-cost, clean power in 500 plus households, guaranteed for the life of the project. That seems to me to be a no-brainer and something that we should support. So to conclude, this project deserves support because it's a good tool for fighting climate change. It addresses the need for more energy, and it will provide low-cost energy to hundreds of households. I urge your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm gonna take a little pause and take comments from folks who may or may not be online. The 5 folks I have who signed up don't match the names that are on the call. So I'm gonna call these 5 names, and you can unmute yourself and let me know if you're on the call. R.C. Rankle, We're going to try this differently. RC Randall. Mike Tidwell.
Hi, thank you. My name is Mike Tidwell. You spell that Miketidwell.
It's for us to hear him. It's okay. Go ahead, Mr.
Pardon me? Can you hear me okay?
Go ahead, Mr. Tidwell.
Again, Executive Director, Chesapeake Climate Action Network. I live in Montgomery County. CCAM was founded 23 years ago to fight for clean energy solutions throughout the state of Maryland and the region. And on behalf of our 5,000 supporters in Montgomery County, I strongly support, as does my board of directors and organization, the Chaverton Project. There is no question that the #1 threat to agriculture on this planet is climate change. And I firmly believe that if reserve were being proposed today, or conversely, if in 1980 we had the kind of climate change we have today, that the founders of the Ag Reserve would have permitted the use of solar power and the generation of solar power in the Ag Reserve. I truly believe that. This project is innovative. I really appreciate the efforts that have been made to combine agriculture with solar power. I think, as someone testified earlier, that the University of Maryland is supportive, and it's a great way to learn and improve this technique so we can have both agriculture and clean energy. It will help us meet our very strong county and state renewable energy goals. And I am disappointed that my county government is in opposition to this project. And frankly, the ZTA that's been mentioned multiple times from 2021, I believe is unfair and anti-solar. And it's not just us, Sierra Club and the Chesapeake Climate Action Network opposed that ZTA and predicted that it would lead to virtually zero solar development in the Ag Reserve. And that is the case as of right now. I do want to say that as someone who advocates for clean energy and solutions to climate change, not just in Montgomery County, but across the state and the region, you know, legislators, often from red counties, often Republicans, when I testify on any bill, on efficiency, on wind power, they will say, Mr. Tidwell, you live in what county? Montgomery County. And you want to put solar power in some of our rural counties across the state of Maryland? I'll say yes. I believe that there is a way to balance solar with agriculture. And then they ask me, how much solar is in your county on ag land? How much solar is in the Ag Reserve? What the de facto ban on solar power in Montgomery County has had enormous impacts on clean energy across the region. So many counties point to Montgomery County and the liberals in Montgomery County and say, if you're not doing it there, why are you asking us to do it here? So I just ask you to consider the outsized impact of our ZTA in our county has on solar across the region. And as we speak in Annapolis, lawmakers are considering legislation to build a brand new, probably 500 to 1,000 megawatt gas-powered power plant in Maryland. Why? Because we're not generating enough renewable energy in state. So by not committing to reasonable solar on ag land, it's not like there isn't a consequence to that. I've already mentioned the outsized consequence that happens across the region when people point to Montgomery County, and now legislators are saying, because we don't generate enough in the state, we have to build a gas plant. So I just ask everyone to consider those consequences, and we find this proposal to be admirable and vital, and the Chesapeake Climate Action Network supports it. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you able to turn up your volume at all? Okay. Hans Reimer. Melanie Hoffman. Thank you. Greg Glenn? Okay, anyone else on the virtual call? All right, thank you very much.
BERGFSKY. Right?
Getting feedback.
He's getting feedback.
Getting feedback.
I'm completely down on everything.
Okay, let's try it.
Okay. Good evening, Your Honor. Thank you for the opportunity to testify this evening. My name is Linda Brogowski, and I am a member of the League of Women Voters of Montgomery County, and that's who I'm representing this evening. The League of Women Voters of Montgomery County is a nonpartisan organization that works to increase understanding of major public policy issues and influence public policy through education and advocacy. We strongly urge the Commission to deny the Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity for this project. At 4 megawatts, the Chaberton Solar Sugarloaf 1 LLC's proposed facility would not only be installed on prime soils in the Ag Reserve, but it is also twice the size limit set by Montgomery County for community solar projects in the reserve. Guidelines for solar installations in the Ag Reserve were set after a lengthy study and negotiations with more than 60 organizations and then codified in CTA 20-01. The Montgomery County Planning Board, as you've heard, recommended denial of Chaberton's mandatory referral application in January of 2025. Not only would the county's local zoning codes be overturned, but also the Planning Board's denial would be subverted, and the functional master plan for the preservation of agricultural and rural open space from 1980 would be violated, along with the Thrive Montgomery 2050 master plan for the entire county. The League has a strong history of supporting measures to make our community greener and preserve natural resources, including the use of solar energy, and we understand it will take creative solutions to meet the state's clean energy goals. However, if the Maryland Public Service Commission approves this request, this project will sacrifice irreplaceable agricultural land, set a precedent that undermines local government authority, and open the door for future developments that will jeopardize the future of farmland preservation in the reserve. Once again, we appreciate the Commission listening to organizations such as ourselves when it comes to matters that directly affect our communities. By the way, I live in Poolesville. It takes the cooperation of residents and responsible leaders to preserve Maryland's most vulnerable resources for future generations. And I've submitted this and read it online as well. Thank you.
Scott Rockefeller?
I'm Scott Rockefeller. I'm a local resident. It's SCOTT-ROCKAFELLOW. I want to register my opposition to the project. I want to echo what a number of people have said about the primary objective of the Ag Reserve to be to support agriculture, and that other uses should be secondary to that. None of the farmers that have spoken here support this project, and I don't think it's a good idea to take productive farmland out of agricultural use for an industrial application. Also, I believe that these projects they get cited and they get pursued based on how profitable they are. And I urge the commission to reject this project and send a strong signal that these projects that don't conform to the ZTA will not be approved, so that they have an incentive to go work on projects that are likely to be slightly less profitable, maybe don't have as easy an interconnection option available like this one does. If they put their efforts into those projects, they'll get done, and we'll have the renewable energy that we need in the Ag Reserve and throughout Montgomery County.
Mason Hopkins. Tammy. Doug Lecklider.
I'm not scared.
David Scott.
No, thank you.
Link Hoeing. Greg Glenn. Rita Beck. Karen Metchis. Craig Wilson. Ann Sank. Jan Sank. Oh. It's okay the way it is.
I'm Ann Sinque from Friends of 10 Mile Creek.
Can you spell your last name, please?
CINQUE. Jay and I have been around, and we're helping form way back when the Ag Reserve. So we've been around for a while. And as I think almost everyone who spoke, we are very much for solar panels. I did not enough, but some research on what is the impact of solar panels, especially as they have been seemingly designed for the Ag Reserve, and there's not much about it. So it seems that anything that has been done is they're questioning it a lot. And how could it not have an impact on water quality? Well, we live in the Ag Reserve, and much of the Ag Reserve is on top of a sole source aquifer, which means there's one place that the water comes from, and that feeds into one of them is 10 Mile Creek, that's the largest, which is the reservoir, the backup reservoir for the whole Washington area. Well, that's a pretty significant kind of place. And the people who are proposing the solar panels have done no studies, nothing about the impact of water quality. And it seems to me to be a quite significant lack and needs to be done. And yes, as with most, if not all of the other speakers, I totally am sympathetic to the idea of solar panels, but we have to find out what potentially might happen as a result. So anyway, thank you. Thank you.
James Ballard.
My name is James Ballard, Ballard. I'm a 100% rooftop solar powered Potomac Edison ratepayer served off the same electrical distribution system that Chaberton Solar intends to use, and I'm concerned that it will negatively impact me as a ratepayer and as a solar energy generator. I'm a retired 23-year FERC electrical engineering subject matter expert. I have much experience with power interconnection experience, policy development, and litigation. Chaberton's proposal is incomplete as submitted and thus far amended, and is therefore premature for CPCN evaluation by the PSC. I have not read the testimonies of my fellow engineers, so I look forward to seeing how they addressed the issue that I'm going to bring up to you now. All Chaberton Solar interconnection study results have not been received, and or associated addendums have not been filed with the results of the system impact and load studies as required and recommended by the received and filed feasibility study. Detailed sites are as follows. If you refer to cover page of Appendix H, interconnection study, parentheses, addendum to file with results once received, close parentheses. Please refer to the following excerpts from the First Energy Distribution and Study for Chaberton Solar, Sugarloaf 1. I guess there's going to be a 2 at some point. LLC GEN-CS 915 project, comma, November 2023. Was revised 1/2/2024. In Appendix H, there's a section A, power flow analysis. And it says, and I quote, based on the contingency review that was performed to identify the facility loadings and or voltage conditions that violate the First Energy planning criteria and are attributable to this project. The results of the power flow analysis found that the proposed 34.5 kV generation addition does not contribute to any new thermal or voltage violations to the system. However, and this is the important point, a detailed load study is required for the deliverability of 4,024 megawatts of the projected generation. This is very important. This is a distribution system. Okay, Part B, system protection analysis. The application is, this is quoting from the report, the study. The applicant is solely responsible for protecting its own equipment in such a manner that electrical faults or other disturbances on the First Energy system do not damage its equipment. An analysis was conducted to assess the impact of the 4.24 megawatt project on the system protection requirements in the area. And this is the important point. The results of the system protection analysis found that a detailed load study is required for the deliverability of Gen CS 9150 project generation. This has not been done yet. We don't even know if they can deliver 4 megawatts to the system. Summary, Part C. This is the important part. I'm quoting it from the middle of Part C. A more detailed review of the connection facilities and their cost may be identified in a system impact study, which has not been done yet. This is an incomplete study. Now, so the reason why this is important on this distribution system, the maximum load on that Bellsville substation is 11 megawatts on average during the summer. First Energy puts out a host capacity map on their website. And they provide the hosting capacity throughout the area. Now, if I was given a distribution system with a peak load of 11 megawatts, and I did my own engineering calculations, I would say that distribution system can handle no more than 2 megawatts of solar. The reason is a solar facility cannot exceed the minimum load on the system. If it does, the system can interrupt, it can island itself. So what we have is a reliability issue that First Energy will have to deal with. They'll have to reset relays, or they'll have to curtail output to keep it below minimum load. And I've done an analysis myself of my estimate of the load curve on this system. And on average, they won't be able to put out more than 2 megawatts. All right. At minimum load, the amount of power that they can put out is 825 kilowatts. And that's from First Energy's website. So what First Energy did, rather than 2 megawatts, is they did their own calculation. They have 1.65 for the distribution system. And what they did is they split that in 2. 1/2 goes to rooftop, 1/2 goes to potential solar arrays. So 825 goes to rooftop, 825 goes to solar arrays. The maximum they can do is 825. Otherwise, First Energy is going to have to reset relays. They're going to make our system less reliable. If they don't, we end up with overloads, over voltages on our system. And what it will do is it'll cause my inverters. So I'm 100% solar. I'm trying to be a good citizen. What it will do, my inverters will limit their output. If it sees high voltage on the system, I won't achieve maximum output of my inverters. So right away, they're gonna self-limit the amount of solar that's going to be available on the system. Now, as a power engineer, I'll tell you this: any system that you take is limited to 4%. You can only put about 4% energy output in a given system until the cost of that system escalates. So once you get above 1.65 megawatts on that system, we're going to have to install batteries. We're going to have to change relays. They're going to have to curtail. There's going to be cost. I'm going to have reduced generation on my part. One way or another, there's going to be cost. So that hasn't been completed. I'd like to see what your work said on that part. Now, as far as necessity, this facility is not necessary at all for Montgomery County. We are in Potomac Edison territory, not Pepco. We have limited load up here. All the load is down in Pepco. If they need 10,000 megawatts of solar, they need to put it in Pepco in order to deliver it to the load in Pepco. We don't have the kind of load here to deliver the power that this thing is going to be generating. They're going to be sending their power to Frederick or whatnot. We already have the ability, thanks to the ZTA 21, to achieve 200% rooftop. If every household here did 200% rooftop, we would be 200% greenhouse. Not 100%, we'd be 200% here in this ag reserve. We have no need for solar arrays in this ag reserve. We have plenty of rooftop to achieve this objective. So there is no need.
Van Mertz? Okay, anyone else who I haven't called yet? Ma'am?
I did sign in.
I may not have I've gone through all the sign-in sheets I have.
Get signed up on this signage. I'll check this.
Everyone will get an opportunity to speak. It's not a big deal.
Your Honor. My name is Charlotte Boucher, CharlotteBoucher. And I'm here tonight because the proposed solar array we are discussing would be located on my family's farm. I am blessed to live on property where my family has lived for almost 200 years. My grandfather was born there in 1890. He was the second son, so he knew he would never inherit the big house and the principal acreage, but he loved his life on the land. After he graduated from the Maryland Agricultural College, which is today the University of Maryland, he decided to establish his own dairying operation. He worked out a way he could purchase from his father a corner of the property across the road from the main farm. And it was there that he built his home, brought my grandmother to live there when they married in 1916, raised 2 daughters, and continued to run a small but successful dairy farm well into the 1960s when he was pushing 80 and he finally retired. That is where I live today. I'm a retired teacher, my husband a biologist. We rent part of our land to be farmed in corn, soybeans, and winter wheat, and some is being reforested. My parents were both teachers, so I grew up in Rockville, closer to their jobs, but we often visited the farm, and my brother and I spent our summers there. I like to say I was raised by Victorians because my grandparents and my great-grandmother, who lived with them throughout my childhood, were so influential in shaping my attitudes and values. They taught me to love our life on the farm. Grandpa would say, take care of the land and it will take care of you, and he was right. Our family never made a lot of money, but we always lived well. And when my mother and her sister wanted to go to college, my grandparents paid for their educations by selling timber from a forested part of the farm. Today, the trees that have grown back in their place are beautiful reminders that love for your family and love for your farm are 2 sides of the same coin. They also taught me that the measure of a successful life is being able to say the world is a better place for your having to pass through it. When you can help, it's your job, indeed your duty, to step up. That's why my grandfather, F. Malcolm White, is on that plaque over there. He was a founder of the volunteer fire department because when you see a need, you do something to help. The need I see today is for clean energy. The real danger to agriculture here and across the state is climate change. While we sit by, temperatures are rising and sea levels along with them. There will be no farming in the ag reserve if we do nothing about it. My husband and I are not rich and powerful people, but we are fortunate that our home is beautifully situated to make a positive contribution. A power distribution line runs right across our property. Positioning a solar array back from the road where it cannot be seen, heard, or disruptive to our neighbors or to traffic on Route 28 puts it right next to already existing infrastructure that can pass the electricity on. The plans developed by Chaberton include agrovoltaics, so the land is agriculturally productive even after the array is installed. And best of all, the quality of the land is never sacrificed. Should the solar field become obsolete or no longer needed, everything can be pulled up and carried away, leaving the ground ready for planting in traditional agriculture the very next day. One more family story. When I was a little girl, the highlight of summer was the Fireman's Carnival held right outside here where this building stands today. There were rides and games, but my favorite was the cake wheel. Cakes baked by the Ladies Auxiliary filled several shelves. You put a dime on your number of your choice. They spun a wheel, and if your number came up, you got to choose a cake to take home. My grandma baked amazing cakes. One year, she baked a dozen for the carnival. I put all my spending money into dimes and played the cake wheel until I had won back every one of the cakes. I was planning a real cake orgy until Grandma found out and made me give all the cakes back to be raffled off again, except for one I got to take home. She said that the point was to help, not to benefit. This community solar project will help more than 500 families have clean, affordable electricity. I can't imagine any other way that Doug and I could make a contribution anywhere near that size. And yes, I did get to keep one of the cakes, and we will be compensated for the use of our land. Our plan is to use that income to make it easier to pass on to the next generation a farm that has been home to our family for so long. Our daughter has children who love coming out to the farm. Our wills arrange for her to inherit the property because she can add another generation of caretakers to the family line. Our son, who has no children, will get his inheritance from savings we are trying to grow in order to provide a share of our lives for both of our children. No one has any intention of developing or selling the farm in the foreseeable future. We cherish it as the productive, clean, beautiful environment it has always been, and we are doing our best to preserve it. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. My name is Douglas Boucher, Douglas, Boucher. And as you might imagine, I'm the other half of a couple who owns the land where the farm, the solar farm will be installed. Since people have said a lot of things tonight, I won't belabor all the points. I only want to talk a little bit about the ZTA and the process by which it was achieved, because a number of people tonight have said that this was a very well worked out compromise among all those involved that came up with a good way for Montgomery County to administer solar in the Ag Reserve. I was part of the stakeholder group that was assigned by the county council to meet and work out a compromise. And we spent a lot of time during the COVID pandemic, including 5 online public meetings and a great deal of exchanging of texts and proposals. In the end, the work group, which had half people in favor of solar and half people opposed to it, came up with 6 recommendations. We reported those back to the county council in January of 2021. And the county council accepted those 6 recommendations. However, the opponents of solar also asked the county council to add 2 more amendments, which had not been agreed on by the stakeholder group. And those included the conditional use requirement, and most importantly, the prohibition against using any type 2 capability class solar. And the county council adopted those 2 additional amendments, even though they were not part of the consensus, and even though they had several analyses that said this would restrict the number of projects in the agricultural reserve to a very small number. Well, we now see what that small number is. It has been 4 years since the ZTA was adopted and went into effect. And the number of solar projects approved under the ZTA is 2. And there are no more even in the pipeline. There's no other applications. 1 application put in 2022, 1 application put in 2023, none since that. I think it's very difficult to say that the ZTA is a success if it only produces 1 solar project every 2 years. I'm a scientist and I've done a little bit of calculation. It's not complicated arithmetic, but at that rate, in order to reach the target of the ZTA, which is 1,800 acres, it would take 300 years. 2321 is when the target would be achieved. I don't think anybody can really say that that's going to be successful development of community solar. So I thank you very much for your attention, and I hope you will approve the project.
Thank you. Are you next?
Well, I signed up and I said I wanted to speak, but my name didn't go ahead. My name is Ellen Gordon, ELLEN GORDON. I've lived in the Ag Reserve for 3.5 decades. I'm not a farmer. I'm a longtime community activist, and I have a few points I want to make. And one of them is that I have some different memories of how the process went, the whole process for developing this. I also worked at the federal level on issues that involve public meetings and hearings and building consensus. And in all the years that I lived in the county, I thought that the ZTA was one of the more, it had all the parties at the table, including the farmers, who have often not had a voice. It had the conservationists at the table. It had solar developers at the table. And I think it's really important for the PSC and the OPC to understand how important that community process was. It brought up, it developed this ZTA. It was a compromise. Some of us would not have liked to have seen type 3 soils go in, but they are, and that was part of the compromise. And that's the way that I remember it. I consider the effort of the applicant to overturn our county law to be a real slap in the face to the community. And I think that's really important for the PSC and the OPC to know. It was a lot of hours that went into developing it. And I wanted to emphasize that because I haven't heard it emphasized before. I also think it's pretty disingenuous to talk about, I mean, the county did its own analysis and put out a report about why there haven't been more projects permitted under the ZTA. It's PJM in the grid. It's the queue. That's the reason it hasn't happened. It's not because Montgomery County hasn't come up with a workable compromise to allow community solar. I find it really interesting that the farmers are here saying, we can't farm with agrivoltaics. And everybody who's spoken up about being able to farm with agrivoltaics are not farmers. I did a deep dive during the pandemic to learn about agrivoltaics because there was so much available online. And I used the science background I have to try and understand it a little better. There is a lot of research on it. None of it is in the mid-Atlantic. All of the data, some of the best data is coming out of places like Colorado, which are arid, dry climates, different rainfall patterns, different soils. There's some going on in New England. There are a few projects, which is getting a little closer to us, but it's not the mid-Atlantic. So we don't, it's great to model and suggest that it might be possible, but we don't have the data. We don't actually know that you can farm. And Dale Tibbetts can attest to the fact that I've been driving the county executive crazy asking for an agrivoltaics research project so that we can start, which obviously the county can't do on its own, but working with academics so that we can start collecting that information. Breaking the ZTA and potentially destroying the ag reserve and giving us a bone that there'll be some research there is not the way to come up with the agrivoltaics research that we need. It may be possible. There may be certain kinds of farming that can co-locate, but we don't know that. And to throw away what we have without knowing that is, I won't say what I think it is. Gosh, I had another point. I also think I can see head shaking and nodding going on when we talk about industrializing, because if you can do agrivoltaics, if you can farm under it, it's really not industrial. I just wanted to add, because I was dumbfounded by this last night. I was speaking to a farmer, a few of us were. And I know that a lot of farms and farmers have received offers. That you heard about that and the price of what's being offered to lease the land. Last night, a farmer told me he was approached about leasing land for large battery setups to be put on it. And if that's not industrializing the land, if that's the road we go down, it's, and that's what we need to support the grid, or if you're going to put solar out here or batteries, is that the road we want to go down? I would also, it's been said well here, but I would just emphasize, I'm also in an informal group that works on food resiliency. And, you know, that we all recognize, whether you're for solar on farmland or not, we all recognize that the climate is changing. And to me, the answer then is to grow more food locally. I see what's happening. I see what's happening around the country. And so does everyone else. To give up opportunities to grow food here, grow even more than we do, just doesn't make any sense to me. Thanks.
All right, anyone else who signed up and I didn't call their name, feel free to come forward. Come on, Sarah.
Good evening, Your Honor. Mike Scheffel, Director, Office of Agriculture. Scheffel is Scheffel. Point I'd like to make is to just reiterate the intensity and input that the county zoning text amendment went through. And the county executive and the county council's letter to the PSC reiterates that we're not against solar. We just want it done as our zoning text amendment was passed. There's been 2 successful applications for that standard of zoning text amendment community solar project in the Ag Reserve. Montgomery County Planning's staff report from December 2023 outlined what Ellen just said, that it's not the soils restrictions, it's not the size restrictions that they believe are most prohibitive. It's the lack of interconnection agreements given from the power companies and then the grid capacity therein. Thank you.
Anyone else who wants to speak tonight? Come on down.
Thank you, Your Honor. My name is Paul Birmingham. That's PaulBermingham. And 3 years ago, my wife and I bought an 85-acre farm in Dickerson. And a big issue in us, a big driver of our decision to purchase here was the Ag Reserve. And so we have devoted our lives to it since then, going to continue to do so. And we really are committed to seeing everything done that can be done to preserve the reserve. We are very pro-solar, but not on fertile agricultural land. So we are opposed to this. I'd like to associate this with the remarks from the representative of the SCA and the MCA and the 2 farming organizations. So we would like that this proposal would not proceed. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next person who wants to speak tonight. All right. Again, there's the opportunity for the filing of further written public comment by this Friday. The hearing tonight, hopefully barring any technical difficulties, will be on the Public Utility Law Judge YouTube channel, which can be accessed via the Maryland Public Service Commission. So for any of you who didn't hear something while in this room or didn't hear the virtual public comment, you can access it there and you can hear it there, hopefully. You never know. Again, the next thing that's going to happen is there's going to be a update from the parties as to the status of the case. And then there will be some type of evidentiary hearing at some future time. It's a little bit in flux depending on if the parties enter into a settlement together or if the parties want to litigate the matter in evidentiary hearings in Baltimore. So honestly, the Public Service Commission is so thankful for all of your time tonight. I know this was a huge time commitment. but we are very thankful when we hear from the community about specific projects. So thank you for your time tonight. The hearing is over and we can go off the record.
Off the record.